I guess for me, the full evaluation of this will be, will I find myself regularly moving from the LCD screens to the RLCD screen? I mentioned that I was looking forward to editing on it. And although I have found it useful in some ways for editing, so using the text-based editing here on this screen, I can't seem to use it for my timeline. I think I'm just so used to the higher resolution screens here, and the 1080p is just not giving me enough actual physical room to do that editing on it. Reflective screens rarely look good with dark mode, and Premiere Pro only runs in dark mode. I could see it as a portrait sort of reading screen because it is great for text. It's great for Word, it's great for typing, but not for video or photo. So save your dark mode for your OLED panels where you're really wanting to reduce the amount of light that your screen actually emits. So I did have an online meeting with David and some chaps from Sun Vision Display, and I was all ready to give them my mostly negative first impressions. And the first thing they said to me was just to tilt it up slightly. And this did make a difference straight away. They gave me 2 tips for users for setting this up. They said, firstly, it ships with the protective screen on, and just to make sure that's pulled off. Then they also talked about 15-degree tilt is usually the best angle. So you just need to ensure that you actually test which is the best tilt for you. This is because it does have a polarizing layer with coatings on top, and that reduces glare and other reflections, but you need to get that angle right for the light that is reflected to be shining at you, the viewer. Also, for me, the call was in the evening, and it was the first time I'd used it with the sun shining brilliantly and brightly directly into this space. So in the evening, the sunlight sets over this direction, and light comes through this window and illuminates this end of my desk really, really well. And the thing looked amazing. So that might be enough of a use case for me, just working into the early evening and getting 2 blissful hours working on this beautiful reflective screen. But when the light is right, the screen has this silvery quality to it, and the LCD color is like ink just painted on top. I asked why they didn't include a front light. They said that this is what the users had seemed to want. They said light from behind your head is more comfortable. They also said that adding a cover lens, which is that extra layer to reflect the light from a front light down into the screen and back to you, would add extra thickness, extra bulk, and also extra reflectivity, so you'd get more distracting glare on the screen as well. It's odd that my very first points weren't so positive, because I really trust Foyo and he'd been so impressed by the technology. And so I am glad that I persevered with the screen. And look, my first and most important conclusion in this first week or so that I've been working with this is that you must have the time and the willingness to try different setups until you get the lighting right. I started with it in the middle of my room here, sort of side onto the window, and I found that one side of the screen was much darker than the other. Although it looked quite good on this side, actually the brightness was less, so this side looked a lot darker. You must want to try different setups to get the lighting right. Simply by moving it through this angle and tilting it around this way has allowed me to now to use the natural light coming from the window, and genuinely it looks really, really good here. Still is a little bit darker in this corner than in this corner. And actually in the evenings, because my video lights are already facing this way to illuminate me when I make videos, actually I can just turn those on, and generally I've got a pretty good illumination of this screen. Now, Voya gave a great suggestion of how you can test whether this will work in your planned space. So you use the light meter in your phone. So essentially the light meter usually is using the front camera, but you download an app to run as a light meter. Check that you're getting around 700 lux all the way across a large area where the screen will go. So actually I can see if I do that same test here with the Physics Toolbox, excellent app. Across this space I'm getting 300 lux at this end. It's obviously quite a bright day. And the video lights are on as well. I was getting 100 lux at this end and 60 lux at this end, and although now I'm actually getting consistently around 500 lux, it would probably be okay right now. But in the evenings or on a less bright day than today, I was getting a gradient of brightness across there, and that was making it unusable. Whereas tilted around in this direction, I'm getting sort of 600 lux at that end, and yeah, 600 lux at that end, and that's perfectly good enough. So anywhere around that sort of 500 to 700 lux, you're going to get a really good viewing experience with the screen. If I were to tilt it that way around, then I would hardly be able to see anything on it. So getting that consistent illumination is going to really dictate whether you have a good experience or not. And you might need to be putting aside some time or even some budget to invest in a lighting solution. Something behind you, maybe quite high up, to directly illuminate this thing, but generally with diffuse light so that you don't get specular reflection and that be distracting on it. One thing they mentioned on that call that they're interested in doing is actually setting up demo sites in the UK and around the world. So you can actually go and see the thing in person, because they are aware that this is a big outlay for people. So they want to give you ways to check that this is actually right for you. Talking to them, you can tell two things straight away. This is something of a passion project for them. They are in fact a regular LCD screen company, New Vision Display, and Sun Vision Display is their low power outdoor signage company. And the story of this product is that they're asked by consumers for an option to purchase one of their screens, but made ready for desktop use. And so they made it. Now, they said that actually that roughly $2,000 price tag is as close to cost as they can make it. They were getting calls from people every day, and they say, well, we're not really a consumer electronic company. This is more of a collaboration with those people who wanted this display technology in their life and on their desk. They're not really expecting this to be a high volume, high profit seller for them, but they're getting feedback that it's a product that is actually helping people. And that is a satisfying thing for them. They're aware that this isn't for everyone or every situation. You do need personal motivation to actually tweak and get the setup right. So I would only recommend this to you if you have a real problem with using LCD display tech. And if the 20-20 rule of looking away for 20 seconds every 20 minutes, focusing on something in the distance to relax your eyes, if that doesn't work for you. And all they've asked for me to do in exchange for this loan of the screen is to give my honest feedback, because the design is being driven by the user desire and that feedback. And I'm using this, I'm turning to it regularly, and I do feel when I turn to it and use it, I do feel my eyes relax. I have the blue light filters on maximum on these screens, and it just isn't stopping the eye strain. I wouldn't say that I get the very worst eye strain, but then I only work full days here at this desk, maybe 7 days out of 10. I certainly get it more when I wear contact lenses and less when I wear glasses. If you do experience discomfort looking at screens for long periods, then this is worth looking at. Just remember, you need to expect to invest that time and perhaps some money in thinking about a lighting solution. Is it worth that hefty price tag? It might well be to some people who satisfy those conditions. I'll be testing this out for a little bit longer, and I will be back with a full review as soon as possible.
So I was going to leave it just there, but then I walked into this office on a sunny afternoon and I thought, wow, that just looks amazing. And this B-roll really shows you how good this looks when the lighting is right. It's such an impressive technology. You at first think that all they've done really is to add a reflective layer underneath a traditional LCD, but it's not. The reflective material was built into every single pixel. That's probably one reason why they might struggle to get much higher resolution than 1080 at this size. The interesting thing from the company is they are really loving hearing all the feedback. And it's interesting to hear from them because New Vision Display is actually the bigger company, and this is not a huge cash grab for them. They could do better just to carry on doing what they're doing in terms of New Vision Display making traditional LCDs and making these Sun Vision displays just for outdoors really. And yeah, I have found over the last few weeks now of actually using this in my office from full days working at home on this desk, I can confirm that I have less eye strain when I use this screen. You do feel your eyes relaxing a little as you move across to this screen. It's got this really interesting natural color cast, and it's really pleasing, not just for text but for videos too. I'd say videos, if you can get white light, like sunlight temperature white light with a full spectrum of all the colors, you're going to get a really attractive color from this screen. But in the evenings, if I've just got my orange light on, then it's okay for text, but not a lot else really. So it does look really, really good for any day where this room is full of light. It looks amazing. This is a room with a reasonably large window, so it's quite good there. There's lots of light bouncing around on those sunny days. And in this mode, this silvery light was really very pleasing, and the colors, although not the saturated luminous qualities that you'll get from an OLED panel when you watch blockbuster videos in your living room, this is a really pleasing set of greens and blues, almost like gazing out a window at a north lit scene. Yeah, I've really enjoyed this. I still think that it's mostly for typing though and working on documents, but it can do that well. People that I've showed this to, and it's interesting to get that range of opinions, people have wondered why anyone would be interested in this. They've totally changed their mind when they've seen it in good lighting conditions, and they're like, wow, actually I can now see why this is something that should be interesting. It's fascinating to see this new technology sector here. It's very interesting indeed. And I think for modern offices with many, many windows where people actually have problems with their traditional LCD screens having too much reflected light from those windows and finding it difficult to see what's on those screens, they are going to find this technology amazing. This is still not the full review, and I will probably do the full review once a new room has been built on our house, which is some work we're having done at the minute, and there'll be lots of light around in that, and that's an interesting set setting for this product. Interestingly enough, people mention when it's next door to LED screens, they're quite distracting. When you've got something luminous next to something reflective, that can be quite distracting. And actually people find that having the flickering thing next to just the reflective thing is a real problem. So I would recommend that you set this up as a place in your workspace where it's just going to be this one monitor. It's almost like when you've got a sheet of paper that's naturally just the same brightness as the surroundings, whereas the luminous objects obviously can be brighter or dimmer than the surroundings. So this screen, the Sun Vision display, is best when there aren't other luminous objects directly around it, sort of in your eye line. And this brings me back to the biggest concern, that you will need to use your computer screen at times where you don't have perfect light. In the evenings or at night time, or in spaces where you don't have abundant light, you're going to need, therefore, an external lighting solution. And so that's probably going to be big and bright and probably distracting as well. And that will probably have flickering light with the AC power line. These are the issues. And that's going to be full of blue light, and that could potentially be damaging and distracting and give you those eye strain problems in any case. So what you really need is lots and lots of diffuse sunlight, and then you're going to have a good experience. The light in my room could really do with being more diffuse, because you can see this annoying specular reflection of the window, but I can tell you that it's a lot less obvious in person than it is on the camera here. It's just a matter of getting your angles right. Whatever they've treated the front of this screen with is doing a good job of controlling those reflections, far better than other RLCD tablets that I've tried, for example. You certainly only have to look at it next door to those other devices in the same conditions to see how well that anti-reflective top surface is performing. I'll spend a little bit more time trying to really compile some objective data about how I feel about this device, and I will be back with a full review of it. It's a very impressive and a very interesting device indeed. Whether it is worth that price tag and whether it is for the masses is still a question that we're going to need to answer.